Hey guys, welcome back to the tutorial on Smart. I just want to tell you guys have a wonderful good night. And so we'll just continue on from our lesson and we'll proceed with the data model that we created last week and we'll develop the other elements of it. I hope you guys stay tuned to the series. As if you notice, the last one was I think in December. And right now it's not regular, but we'll hopefully try to at least once a month, and hopefully we'll get through all of the basic areas of Smart getting the data model set up, and then we'll move on to a bit more advanced features, and as I learn, I'll be sure to update the tutorial, and we'll go all the way to creating your own reports and getting information from your Smart in an automated way. All right? All right, so let's continue where we left off. So as you remember last time we loaded up some shapefiles to use as our base map. We also created our primary base map which will be used in most of our maps. All right. And so right now you're not seeing anything. Sometimes the Smart has this issue. I don't know exactly what creates this issue. But to see your shapefiles, you just need to right click on one of these and you just zoom to that layer. And then by doing that, you would automatically reload the shapefiles. And then you can visualize what you're doing. All right. So this is the area I work in. What we want to do now is to create the workers, the rangers, and so on and so forth who will be using Smart. They'll be the individuals collecting data and doing analysis of the data and whatnot. All right, so right now it only has myself, the admin. So first we need to create some roles. And so the first thing we want to do is to create the entity. If you're at that level where you're doing it for a country, you'll need to create different agencies. And so in this case, since I'm Tide, that's what I'll do. I'll create an agency called Tide. I also create some ranks. In our ranks, we have a marine manager. Right? We also have a head ranger. And then we have rangers. Right? And so those are our 3 ranks. We can add more if we want to, but for right now, I think you guys understand the idea. So like if you're doing it for maybe a country or something like that, then you create more agencies across the country based on the branches or maybe the different units. And another thing is that even though we have it set up like this, in this organization Tide, we can have sub-entities. So maybe we have a research and monitoring team that only goes out and collect biodiversity data. And then we have the enforcement team, right? So you're not limited to just doing the one entity that I'm doing, all right? But that's generally what you do, all right? So you save that and you close. And then you go back in and now you create some employees, all right? So I'm already here, and so what I need to do is I need to assign myself a role, okay? And so for the agency, I'm Tide, and I'm the marine manager, right? And then this remains the same, right? We'll also create one more individual, and so we'll create a new, and then we'll create, again, he works at Tide, and he's, let's say, the ranger, okay? And so we just call him John Doe. And then you enter his date of birth and whatnot. This is the time he started to work with the organization. And you can probably run queries on that level. So he's a Smart user, and this is the type of information that he's going to be doing, right? So he's more of a data entry person, so he's collecting data, but he's not able to analyze the data or anything like that, right? If you want him to run reports, maybe he's a head ranger and he needs to run report, then you need to make him a manager, okay? So for this case, we just make him a data entry. And then we'll create a username. If you continue to use the model I've been using, it's JDOE. So the first letter followed by the last name. And that's the same thing for the password, right? And then you save. Okay, and now we have 2 users. And you can continue to populate your data model. Data model, is it? Or your conservation, your whatever, with that. Okay, The next thing is we want to create different stations. For us, we only have the one station. That's called Abalone Key, or Abalone Ranger Station, right? We do have others with our other teams, but for now, this is all we want. We can add a small description of that station, or we can just leave it as is, okay? And then you save. You go on, you populate with the different stations available. And this would be across the entire, these stations are more like where patrols can start at. So we can also start patrols at our headquarters in Punta Gorda town. And so it's tied at headquarters, right? And then wherever else you can start a patrol, then you'd like to do that. So this is used to maybe like say what station you're working from or starting patrols or something like that, okay? And then you can hit save. And now you have your stations. All of this is mandatory because before you start the smart program to collect data, you need to do this step. So this second step has that manage projections and define area boundaries. I don't really use it as much. But if you wanted to use define area boundaries, you're able to run queries based on this. And so that's actually a good thing to use. So for instance, if you notice, we have management sectors, patrol sectors, administrative areas, buffered management areas, conservation area boundaries, and conservation zones. And so this is a good thing to do. So maybe you can run patrols based on only what's inside. So for instance, our conservation zones right now are marked yellow. Let's just change that color so that you guys can get a better visual of it, right? And so we have change style. Right? And then we'll change it to something more visible. And so we have the fill. And the fill, let's just make it something like a red. Okay? And then that's good enough, I think. Okay? And then we'll do a small opacity on it, so we don't want it to be too bright. I think 50 is fair enough. And then we hit OK. So now it's red. And then we'll put some contrast on there, so we'll make the entire protected area blue. And so we'll change that style. And then we'll go to fill, and we'll change that to some blue. And this blue is fair enough. Okay? And now you can contrast with that. If you notice, this blue at the bottom, it has the opacity, and so for this one, we might not necessarily want that. So we'll give it a hard blue, and we'll put opacity at 100, right? See? And then if you notice, we have some other little mounds or shoals, and so the order of this is the visibility order. So you actually want to make sure that certain things are at the top and at the bottom based on, your visibility. So if you've made maps before, you know your lines go to the top, and then followed by your polygons, points, lines, polygons. Okay? We also have our mounds and shoals that we created last time. And let's change that to something like white, since in the real world, it's actually white, right? And so now it's white, our border, you can put none, so by making it 0. See? And now you have that. And if you notice, it's a bit below, so we can put it on the top. And now it's on the top. Our keys, it's Belize. And so generally, this is above all of that. And then if we change the style, I just generally like to put it like gray for the country, like a light gray. And then this is 100, since nothing, right? Then, so that's the top, most there. You can play with the visibility on, get it to how you like it. For me, this is good enough for what I'm doing, okay? And so, yeah, by defining these areas, you can create queries based on that. And so that's what you do there. And then finally, since we made some changes to this base map, we want to actually save it. So save as base map, and then overwrite existing, and then it's the primary base map. Okay, and so our changes have been saved. If you don't do this step, you'll have to redo that every time. We don't want to go down here yet. The first step is the data model followed by the configurable model, but we don't want to do that as yet. Okay, we want to actually go into the patrol area and create some mandates, types, and teams, and then we'll move from there. So the next step is to create some patrol mandates. The mandates is like for the type of patrol. Just by giving you an example, you'll be able to understand. So here we have the routine patrol. You can put patrol, or you can choose not to put patrol. So since all of them are patrols, then there's no point in adding patrol since there are patrols, right? And then maybe we want to do one where we call a night patrol, so we just put night. We can do one that's called maybe an out PA, so that's outside of the protected area patrol. And so maybe your team is going outside of the patrol and they're going to assist maybe in another area. But because generally with protected areas, there's these gaps that sometimes need to be filled by your team. And so this is how you can use this to say, you know what, I'm sending my team outside of the protected area that they're supposed to patrol. And then another one that's good is search and rescue. So this is a search and rescue patrol, right? You can also do maybe an intelligence verification patrol. And so if they got some intel, then you want to say, you know what, we're doing this patrol because we got some intel. And then finally, we're doing some joint patrols, right? And this one is generally with some different entities, maybe the police force or the army or maybe the Coast Guard, and that's what you can do. You can also create some other ones, such as maybe some biodiversity. That's what I like to call it, biodiversity. Or you can also call it research and monitoring, and that encompasses everything. So maybe that's a better name, research and monitoring, right? And so those are the mandates. And so before they start the patrol, they should pick one of those mandates, and that dictates what they're going to do. Of course, there will be times where you're doing something that combines both, and so you're going to have to prioritize on, something that includes both, because fortunately there's no way you can pick two, so you can just pick one. I know like sometimes some patrols are in the night and it's also intelligence verification, and so there's no way for you to hit night patrol and also hit a verification of intelligence, unless you do it in the data model section where you collect data. All of this is done before you start your patrol, before the boat takes off, right? Before you start observing information, and so you collect all of this information before you take off from your base. Next, we want to create some types, and this is in terms of the transportation type, right? And so for us, we have a boat, right? What I like to do in this section is I like to create different types. So even though it's a boat, but maybe we have a boat that burns fuel differently, or it has some different characteristics that we want to keep track of. So some people would have maybe a double engine boat, or they have a single engine boat. And so it's good to do this because when you're calculating your average fuel usage, because you're using a single engine boat as opposed to a double engine boat, you're going to be burning half the amount of fuel. And so in that case, you actually want to do this, right? And so we have the key is the boat and the drone, and then we save that. Finally, we have some teams. In some Ranger teams, you have maybe a research and monitoring team, or you have an enforcement team, and so you want to create this team. Sometimes we even have maybe a team only goes maybe with a group of people if you have multiple maybe you have 10 people and 3 individuals, maybe that's your alpha team or your bravo team or something like that. And that's where you use this section, okay? And in this case, you go and you create, for instance, us, we only have the one, so we'll call this one PHMR, or we can call it Abalone, you know, since they're all based in Abalone. We do have shifts, but we don't have enough people where we create separate teams. They'll all be working together at some point. If we go back to patrol types, if you notice, you have this ground. You have air, ground, and water. So in the case of the boat, that should be water. And in the case of the drone, that should be air. I spoke about the double and the single. So in the case of the boat, you would actually enter its name. So, you know, for instance, this could be the single engine boat. And then you add another one. And this can be the double engine boat, right? And if they have name, then you can use the name. And then you differentiate by the type. And see, sometimes they can be active or inactive. Maybe the boat was retired. And so that's why you would maybe put some names on those vessels, all right? Another thing is that we might not get a chance to go in, so let's do it now, is that we can disable employees because since you're an organization and people retire, then you don't want to lose the information that that person has collected. And so what you want to do is you can deactivate that individual, and then you hit save, and then that individual will be deactivated, and then you can't select them on the patrol. Imagine this person retired, and then their name pops up, and then now you're saying, you know what, this individual is going on a patrol, but he's already retired. His name would always continue to be popping up. And so what you want to do is to make him inactive, and like that, then his name will never pop up. But if you run queries maybe so many years before, his information is still there, right? And so that's how you do that. Use that little feature right there, okay? And so now what we have set up is all of the individuals that are going on the patrols, how they're going on the patrols, the different mandates, and as well as the employees, their names and their little details and whatnot. So right now, what we want to do is we want to go into the data model. So what we'll be creating are the ways you can collect information, all right? And so right now we don't have any information since we're starting from scratch. And so we want to create our data model from a blank. So you're going to use a blank data model. So if you guys recall, at the website, Smart, they have sample data models that you can actually download. And so you don't have to start from scratch. Inside of the program itself, it also has that information. So you guys got to make sure you browse the website and use this information that's already provided to you. Because there's really no sense in like going in there and doing everything from scratch. Let me see. Okay, so here we have the marine data model for Smart 6. And so if you want to, this is updated April 2019, and you can download these data models, right? And you don't have to start from scratch. And then you can edit this. And so what I'm doing is, since maybe some people need to know how to enter information, then they'll do it based on how I do it.